Terrorists. Religiously motivated terrorists from the Middle East have just struck a demoralizing blow to the capital of Western civilization, the capital of Western decadence from their perspective. The year is 66 AD. The religious sector, Jews, and the capital that we're talking about is Rome. Although this war occurred 20 centuries ago, it still reverberates throughout history and is affecting your life to this very day.
Around 2,000 years ago, the Western world went through its greatest philosophical shift ever, a complete 180. And we've been living out this same worldview till today. But now we're standing at the brink of another huge philosophical shift. So learning from this important period of history can help us make the critical choices we need today.
The Creating Christ book is really very fascinating. There's so many fascinating things about this.
And it's quite a convincing presentation, I think.
I think what you're bringing to the table dovetails beautifully with what's going on in the rest of the Mediterranean at the time.
Let's begin by uncovering various clues history has left us, like pieces in a mosaic, which ultimately help us arrive at the big picture.
When I was reading the work of the first century Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, I was struck by something he said, that the man he worked for, the Roman Emperor Vespasian, was in fact the Jewish Messiah of prophecy. In effect, another Jesus of the first century. This went against everything that I'd been taught.
Flavius Vespasian and his son Titus Flavius were the Roman generals who destroyed Jerusalem and took down its temple, ending the first Jewish war with the Romans. How could a Jewish historian say that they were the Jewish Messiah?
And this, I think, made me take it seriously more than any of the rest of this stuff, was that in Mark 13, they depict Jesus as saying that when one generation is past, which would be about 40 years, they'll see the sign of the Son of Man in heaven and the temple will be destroyed. Watch out, it's gonna happen before this generation is over. But why would anybody have him make a false prophecy? Why no second coming of Jesus? They must have known that hadn't happened. Jesus didn't come back. Well, maybe that's not what they were saying. Maybe the Son of Man wasn't Jesus. Maybe a Son of Man, you know who we mean, will come back and destroy the temple. Is that the General Vespasian and his son Titus?
In the New Testament, we find supposed predictions of things that are supposed to happen in the future. And it looks as if they have been fulfilled. And that Jesus is a great prophet who must have been omniscient, but in fact, they were written after they'd already occurred. So it really was no great feat of prophecy.
Astonishingly, in Josephus' history of the Jewish war, he describes the destruction of the temple in almost identical terms to those used by Jesus in the Gospels. And the fact that Josephus' histories and the Gospels were both written during the Flavian era was a coincidence that it was impossible to overlook.
In all three of the first Gospels, Jesus insists that his glorious second coming would happen within the lifetimes of people then listening to him. This, of course, would be a confirmation of the claims of the Emperor Vespasian to being the glorious coming of the Jewish Messiah. And it's that conjunction of events that struck me as most unusual, as if the Gospels themselves were written to demonstrate the Flavian claim to being the true Jewish Messiahs.
Well, that starts to look like something different was going on than we had expected, and whoever wrote Mark 13 already believed it, that it was the destruction of the temple by the Flavians. That was the great second coming. In fact, Vespasian was considered a god, and that made Titus the son of God. So was that lurking in the background? I can't say it wasn't. That is beguilingly cogent, because otherwise, why would you write this? Hey, let's have Jesus make a false prophecy. You never do that.
Though other scholars have spoken of these parallels, James and Warren found some actual physical archaeological evidence that links these Flavian emperors to the very beginning of the Christian religion.
Very early on, we began looking for archaeological evidence that the Romans had some involvement with the development of Christianity. We started to look at architectural details and especially focused on coins, as the Roman Empire used them to spread their governmental propaganda across the empire. And we imagined that there would be a coin that would show the linkage between Christianity and the Roman Empire, if indeed our thesis was correct.
Initially, I was skeptical that we would find some concrete image that would actually connect the two. But I was working on myself on a monograph on Roman coinage and propaganda, and as I was working on that, for years, my co-author had been looking for this physical evidence and happened across the specific image that was used thousands of times by the Emperor Titus on his own coinage.
This image was never used before by a Roman emperor, and early Christians began using different versions of it in the same era.
Finally, while examining the first archaeological evidence of Christianity in the world, which are the catacombs of St. Domitilla, she being the niece of the Emperor Titus and the granddaughter of the Emperor Vespasian, the connection finally came into focus. The symbol that is most famous from the catacombs of St. Domitilla, known as one of the earliest iconographic representations of Christianity, is an anchor flanked by two fish. As it turns out, Titus's coinage has a symbol of an anchor wrapped around by a dolphin or a fish.
According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, both of these images are part of a family of symbols used by early Christians, which includes a dolphin on an anchor surrounded by fish, dolphins or fish with a trident, and other variations.
This provided, at last, the first physical evidence of a link between the Flavians and the earliest church.
I guess the big discovery they made was that something very odd, that on Flavian dynasty coins, there was kind of their house trademark of an anchor with dolphins around it. And what do you know? Around the same period, that image, which is kind of an odd one, it becomes a widespread Christian symbol. Now, if the Romans were hated enemies, why would Christians appropriate this? That's so strange. It's like, hey, what do you say our synagogue adopts the swastika as its symbol? It never happened. And so that's kind of their point. I mean, they do Valiant and Warren Fahey have done all kinds of complex work. It's not just that, but that was a very surprising thing, almost a smoking gun. So I have to take that seriously.
Why did Titus Flavius mint thousands of coins with a fish and anchor image on it? And why did early Christians use this image in their earliest catacombs? What does this symbol mean? And how could it have been used at the same time in two such different contexts?